All right, welcome to another episode of NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode, we are joined by RevTrev from Kempner Sports. I got to say that right. And we're going to do a little bit different this year. This episode, we're going to do some overreactions for the season and, previews and all of that. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the show. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Anytime we can talk about football is a good day, and we'll just kind of get it out of the way. We talked about this offline. I am a Bears fan, and you are a
Packers fan.
So you know what? Next week we're gonna have to, or the next time when the Bears play, we'll have to get together. And I'm not all that excited for the wins and losses this year, but you know what? Anytime we get NFL football, and anytime we get to see, as a Bears fan, I get to see a quarterback that we have hope for. I'm excited. So.
Absolutely. And actually, one of my closest friends is a Bears fan, and very level-headed Bears fan, I would say. And he gave me some insights this week that I didn't know, and I'm super interested to see if he's correct on it. So, and by the way, just a side note, Justin Fields was a great pick by the Bears. I think other teams passed up on Justin and should have picked him. So I've got a lot of conversation about that. I'm not a biased fan. I'm a realist fan.
Yeah, I tell you what, I told you I was just on a 49ers Bears preview, and the comparisons with Trey Lance are going to be interesting. But I am glad that they picked Fields as well. I was surprised when it happened, but I was like, okay, we have something we will work with. And I am an Iowa Hawkeye as well. So, I had a chance to watch him, and obviously I didn't like him in college. But just to see, just the grit that he portrayed, and there's a lot there. He's just got a lot of raw talent. Coaching's going to be huge this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'd like to get into, obviously we've already had the one game on Thursday, and the Bills just kind of dominated. And so you had some great overreactions. I definitely want to get into those. And you do a lot of that kind of on your podcast as well, right? Overreactions, or what do you do throughout the year?
I mostly do fantasy football content, and so a lot of that is overreaction stuff because people watch one game and then all of a sudden, you got to trade for this guy, or you got to cut this guy. So that's kind of where that came out of, and it's fascinating to me how much people overreact over one game.
Yeah, and those that are successful in fantasy football play the long game, right? You kind of look at it and just, 1 week, and maybe it's matchups, maybe it's this or that, but throughout the whole season, and I think there's going to be one quarterback that is on a mission from what happened last year, and obviously that's Josh Allen. Maybe the question will he be healthy with how he plays? I mean, he just was an animal, stiff arming the defensive back and all that, and he was on it, wasn't he?
Yeah, and there's a reason why he's had success for the last 2 seasons. Like, this guy is the real deal. And so this is where I kind of had suggested that, the overreaction theater is that he's the next GOAT, move over Brady, here's Josh Allen. But the fact is that he's in command the whole time. He doesn't look like he's phased. So that's what I enjoyed about him. And then his running ability, and he's like large guy. Like he reminds me a little bit of Big Ben, but better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm believing the hype that this guy's for real, and he's shown it for 2 years. So I'm loving any kind of Josh Allen. I've been targeting him in fantasy football, and so I love Josh Allen. I think he's amazing.
Yeah, and obviously he's got all the physical gifts as well, but a lot of it is, mentality, and that's what you want to see from your quarterback if you're going to be contender. And obviously, being a Packer fan, you've seen that from Rodgers. Although it's been a little while since he's had that killer instinct in the playoffs, but
True.
Game in and game out, you're going to have a chance to win when you have a quarterback like that. Josh Allen has become that guy, and just that loss, I mean, that was just an amazing game versus the Chiefs, but he had it. And that's what, every team obviously wants. And, speaking of his backup last year, Mitch Trubisky, when he was with the Bears, I mean, he had some good games and had some good play, but he just didn't have it. He just didn't have that
Right.
and still doesn't. And it'll be interesting to see what he does with the Steelers.
Totally.
I'm sure he learned some things from Josh Allen, but do you see then Josh Allen being an MVP this year?
Yeah, he's got to be in the conversation. He is that good. So now there's a lot of hype about the Bills, and they didn't hurt their case last night, winning 31-10. So I'm all like, give them credit. Let's say, you know, he's there. He's just still got to put up those numbers, and you know, there are other guys out there that have the chance to be MVP as well. So I don't want to crown him as MVP yet, but he's definitely in the top 5, top 3 in the conversation.
Well, I'm going to give you another overreaction statement here, and this is one centers around my thoughts on the MVP discussion, and it may be a surprise. So, overreaction: Jalen Hurts will be in the MVP discussion this year.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's got a lot of talent, but he's not even close to these conversations. You know, when the team is still wondering if they're going to keep him, like, how can we have him in this conversation?
So I love like his progression, that he had in college, and he really became more accurate through college, even, changing teams. And he started to do that, with the Eagles. So he has that potential. But I think you are right in a way, because I think some of these quarterbacks need to take that progression. Josh Allen, just an amazing quarterback last year, but he wasn't in the conversation, and now this year, it's kind of that rite of passage, kind of, showing you could do it, when it matters, and being clutch, in the regular season and in the playoffs. So you kind of see that. Obviously, the MVP is a regular season award, but when you look at that, they do kind of have to take a progression. So I like Jalen Hurts to kind of be in a discussion. I don't think he's going to be the MVP, but I think he's going to have a great year. You have the weapons that surround him. I think that's important as well.
Absolutely. AJ Brown is a superstar. The reason why he didn't put up the numbers last year is because he got hurt. And so when you add someone like that to that roster, it just boosts up everything that you're going to do statistically, and on the field. He causes nightmares for the defense. And so, there's a lot to be excited for in Philly. I think all the Philly fans should just be absolutely pumped about what this season could be, and but they still have to beat the Cowboys. They just do. Like, you talk about some of these teams that are up and coming. For example, Denver. I love that they got Russell Wilson, and there's lots of talk and blah blah blah. But hey, just so you know that Mahomes is still there, and Herbert's still there, and those teams have great defense. And by the way, Devontae Adams just showed up in Vegas. So, like, we can talk about Russell Wilson. I feel that's the same way in this same conversation. You can talk about these guys, but they have to do it. And it's like, you have to beat the Cowboys. You have to be the guys who win that division.
Well, speaking of a quarterback who has done it before, your guy Aaron Rodgers, overreaction here. Aaron Rodgers will win his 3rd straight MVP in 2022.
Well, there's a possibility, and I'll tell you why. Because everyone has discounted us because Adams left. Now, don't get me wrong. I personally think Devontae Adams is the best wide receiver, or 1B with Cooper Kupp, whoever you want to say there. That's with Rodgers, and losing him is absolutely devastating. But in saying that, if Rodgers can, if they can win the division, if they can be a top seed in the conference, as well as put up those numbers with that receiving core, how can he not be in the conversation? Like, how can he not even be a better candidate than last year if he has like look at that receiving core, man. Like, someone's going to have to step up. But I think he's going to spread it around, and he's going to get some good numbers. I just don't know if he's going to put up good enough numbers compared to some of the other quarterbacks.
Well, and what I wonder too, it really is a media award, right? And has he kind of like burned some bridges with the media at all?
Yeah, I just watched a podcast with him, and he talked about how everyone's kind of labeled him as the villain. And not that he wants that label, but it's just like people want to do that with him. And I think it's actually quite a valid point that he brought up. It's like, so what has he really done to make everyone angry? Like, there are quarterbacks and players in the league who are legal issues. And here he is just saying a few things or doing a little kind of this or that. I don't understand. They also hate everyone that's good, right? Like, people hate Tom Brady because he's been successful. I think that Aaron Rodgers is also in that category, that people love to hate him because he's successful. Like, add him on any other team and any other franchise, and they're like, we're going to win the Super Bowl. That's, not any other team, but you know what I'm saying is like he could be the key to somewhere else. So it's possible. I'm not saying he does, but if he puts up numbers with that receiving core, I think he has to be legitimately in the conversation.
Well, another overreaction here as well. Then the Packers will not have any 1,000-yard receivers in 2022.
Yeah, that's very likely. That's very likely. Now, yeah, again, I think he's going to spread the ball around. The guy who I actually think is going to have a ton of receiving yards or at least receptions, Aaron Jones. Like, coming out of the backfield, like this guy is explosive and dynamic. So we always forget about it. We're always talking about, okay, well, we got a couple rookies, we got a couple guys who, you got an older guy like Sammy Watkins is trying to do something. It's like, you got two incredible running backs that actually can catch on the backfield. So I agree that they won't have anyone that has 1,000. Well, or there might be one guy. I just don't know which one it is. I mean, Christian Watson could have 1,000. I just don't know. I haven't seen it yet. So,
are you rostering any of the Packers receivers other than like Tanyan?
No, and even my buddy wants. He's a Texans fan, and he wants Damian Pierce off me. He's offering me Alan Lazard. I'm like, get out of here, man! Like, I'm a Packers fan, but I'm not stupid. Like, I think it comes down to I actually have to see what the offense looks like. It's too hard before, and if I felt like Lazard was going to be the guy, but I've seen him before, and I just don't know if he's got Aaron's trust. I don't know if he has the talent to do it.
Well, and he may miss the game against the Vikings as well, right?
Yeah. That's worrisome for sure.
So, when you look at, fantasy wise, and we already had the first game, Bills, Rams, and you had other great overreactions, and this is the one that you had touched on. Cam Akers was invisible, so send Akers to the waiver wire immediately. Overreaction or not?
I don't actually think it's an overreaction. Oh, don't send him to waivers, but be very, very worried about that pick. You should have not picked him as high as you did. You can't have him as an RB2. You need to have Henderson. You better have drafted Henderson or somebody else, because you can't trust that guy, because the Rams don't trust that guy. Now, is it the injury related? Like, he's had enough time now to come back. But if you're looking at what Sean LeVay is saying, McVay, yeah, sorry about that. He is even saying he needs to step up. We need to see more from him. And I'm like, man, if that's what his coach is saying, because they always overhype their guys, I'm super worried. I'm putting him on my bench. I'm praying that he becomes the guy everyone hoped to be. But if you can trade him right now, would be great. If you can find guys like a buy low, go for it, because that's how worried I am. And I don't think that's actually overreaction theater. The overreaction theater is dump them on the waiver wire immediately.
So I'm one of the ones that put on Twitter that maybe it is an opportunity to buy low with Akers, and I think, to your point, if you've got some other running backs, and you don't have to count on him, it might be an opportunity to, get him and stash him, and maybe something with the Rams offense. Maybe it just, starts to evolve a little bit, because, McVay, he said, they weren't ready and it was on him and whatever. And that could be the Super Bowl hangover. Who knows what it is? It could also be, missing Odell Beckham. I mean, he was huge in the offense, right?
Totally.
And you look at that offense, I mean, Here's another one as a Bear fan. Overreaction. Allen Robinson is done. Drop him in fantasy.
Yeah, so a lot of people are worried. And here's the thing about Allen Robinson. I actually just watched 2 minutes and 19 seconds of his routes, the entire route running. And people are right. He was wide open. What I learned by watching that video was that Stafford doesn't trust him yet. Stafford's looking for Cup only. And then he's got a couple other guys that he's going to look to, but he's got to look to Robinson. So I'm buying low on Allen Robinson, I want him on my team. I think he's going to have a good season. He's a very good wide receiver. I think he's still very valuable. You buy low now. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's going to have some great games. Now, the thing is, if Stafford continues not to trust him, maybe it's just not enough time to have the chemistry yet. But he needs him. You can't only look to one guy. Look, Rodgers looked to Adams over again. And I understand why you're going to that guy, because you trust him. But you needed a second guy, and they have a second guy in Allen Robinson. But I'd love to hear your take as a Bears fan about Allen Robinson, because I've seen a lot of great highlights of him over the years in a Bears uniform.
So here's what I worry about. With the Bears last year, they didn't really involve him as much as they could have, and then he quit on the team, right? And so that's what I wonder about, with the Rams, if they don't go to him. I mean, they went to Skoranek? They went to him quite a bit,
right?
And who knows? I mean, maybe if you look at it, maybe the Bills were kind of scheming against Allen Robinson. Maybe that was part of it as well. It seems like he's on the downturn of his career. I'm going to stay away from him. Even as a Bear fan, I stayed away from him, just knowing, I mean, he could flash, but he just, I wouldn't bet on him, that would be, I'd be worried as a Rams fan to say, okay, well, is the same thing going to happen, with that happened with the Bears? Is he going to be disinterested and, kind of quietly just kind of like, fade away? I think he needs to be involved, and they need to get him involved in week 2. If they don't, that could be, the real, telltale thing there. So,
but my question is to you, a little pushback is, Robinson was touted as the number 1 in Chicago. So being a number 2 and not having all that pressure, do you think he could be successful as that? Because Cooper Kupp is super talented.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope. But here's the thing. You talk about not having that rapport, and that was the big knock on him last year. He just didn't have that rapport, that time with Justin Fields, right? And so if he's already having that with Stafford, and who knows, maybe Stafford is still nursing his injury. Maybe that was part of it too. But maybe that's the offensive line as well, kind of getting used to. I mean, the Bills, they were amazing, right, on defense, and they were the pressure and everything, and so that was part of it too. I mean, and so I don't think he it's really difficult. He wants to be the guy, and I think he's lost a step, and so I would be worried about him fantasy wise. I would be worried about him for the Rams just overall as well.
Yeah.
So, kind of on that game as well. So I've talked to some Buffalo Bills podcasters, and this was obviously even before the game. And, I was the one that was skeptical of Gabe Davis, and obviously he's looks like he's going to be a monster, and that's one game. But anytime you're attached to Josh Allen, and you got Stephon Diggs there, I mean, he's going to be a monster, I think, this year. I think that's going to keep going. The one thing that came up with the Bills podcaster had a question, and this is within Bills fans. They're thinking that the Bills will put up historic numbers on offense in 2022. Is that an overreaction on their part?
It might be. The thing is that we're kind of, I don't want to, we're talking overreaction, but can we just state the obvious that they just smoked the champs? 31-10, what was their team different than last year? There's a few different pieces, but they're very similar. So I can understand why Bills Mafia is is like losing their mind right now, and maybe rightfully so, of how good they are. Again, coming back to but they didn't beat the Chiefs when it mattered. So maybe they can put up historic numbers. That's not in the realm of not a possibility. Like it's in the realm of a possibility. But man, it's so hard to say from week one. But they're looking from last year and saying this is possibility. The thing that they're missing is they actually don't have a number one running back. Like Singletary is good. He's not great. So if they had another piece to that puzzle, then I could say, you know what? Now, are we talking historic numbers passing offense? Yeah, okay, that could happen. Barring no major injuries, right? So,
well, and here's what I would worry about from the running game as well. James Cook had that fumble, right? And he didn't. I didn't see him play much after that, and so that can be huge as far as like fumbles and things like that. Will they be able to trust him when it matters? And so that'll be interesting to see kind of his role as well. But Singletary, yeah, I mean that's kind of been like, fantasy wise last year and even this year I've stayed away from Buffalo running backs. But when you look at Singletary, he was running hard and he was running well. Can he keep that up the whole season? I don't know, but I mean he looked good.
He did. It's just that what did he end up having? Right.
Point wise.
And so he had some flashes there. There's a lot of running backs in the NFL that have flash. They just need to produce. Like, can you imagine Nick Chubb in Buffalo or Kareem Hunt in Buffalo? I'm telling you, Kareem Hunt would be a better option than those running backs they have right now. They should be knocking on Cleveland's door and asking for a trade. That's
absolutely. With where Cleveland is going to be at this year. Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of, teams, we talked about the AFC West earlier, and I have a little hot take here. So overreaction. The Chiefs will finish last in the AFC West this year.
Possible, but I think you're right. It's overreaction. They still have the core. They still so that would mean that everyone else is so much better now. But the question is, who is going to be last? There's 4 great teams there. So, man, that's a great question. I think we'd all be shocked. We'd all be shocked because Mahomes is that good, but then he really struggled last year in the regular season. It seemed like in the playoffs. Now, granted, I was at the Chargers-Chiefs Thursday night game. I flew down for that. I would say that was the second best game of the season, barring the Bills-Chiefs game. Mahomes driving down, passing it to Kelsey, him running through everyone, scoring in overtime. Like, that is unbelievable. So, again, it comes back to this. Who did they lose? Oh, we lost Tyreek Hill. Now it's over. Now we're going to be 4th. Come on. That is a really big jump for me. So I think that's overreaction. But I can see the Raiders winning that division. I can see the Chargers winning that division. I can see the Broncos coming second. How's that? I don't know if I can see the Broncos. Well, maybe they can win that division. It's just too hard to do it. Like I've never seen them do it. So possible, but I think an overreaction.
Yeah, I mean the reason I say possibly 4th is the defense, right? And they were just historically bad, at times. Obviously, adding George Karlaftis, I think that'll be helpful there as well. But the one thing I would worry about with either Chiefs and from what I hear with the Raiders as well is defense, right? The Raiders secondary, right? Those type of things. And when you look at this division, quarterback heavy, they're going to be chucking around, and it could be some high scoring games. When it comes down to it, you look to the quarterbacks who have done it before. Yes, Mahomes has done it before. Herbert, it's so interesting. Everyone's kind of going on the Chargers and Herbert, and we talked about with Josh Allen that progression, and I think maybe he has a great year, but they have to take that progression. And I think probably the only quarterback that maybe took that jump without having to wait was Joe Burrow, right? But when I think of Herbert, I mean, he's talented, right? But he's got to, do it when it matters. So do they finish first? I don't know. Mahomes is out there, right? Derek Carr, he's got his buddy, and he's got all these weapons, so he's there. Russell Wilson is milk toast, but he's got he's got some weapons, and so I don't know. When I look at Mahomes, I love though, when players talk about fantasy wise, and I loved how he said, sorry, we don't have a number one wide receiver. But that would worry me because when he improvises, right, he's just used to having that security blanket of Tyreek Hill getting open. So that would worry me because he does that a lot, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. But this is where I've thought this is interesting, and I do apologize going back to the Packers. But so everyone's said the Packers are done because Davante Adams is gone. Chiefs have lost Tyreek Hill, and everyone's still like, yeah, they're going to win. Like Chris Sims predicted that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. So what did they add? They added Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad wide receiver, but I'm talking he's not elite.
Mm-mm.
Like losing Tyreek in that offense, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And nobody's like, it's like, yeah, it's business as usual. I mean, I get it. You still have Kelsey. You still have this great system. You still have this great quarterback. So I understand the hype and not even hype, the reality that they've done so well. So yeah, I'm super interested in just watching that division. Like I'm not a huge fan of any of them, but I respect all of them, especially the Chargers and the Chiefs. And I love the Raiders too now that Davante's there. And I met Derek Carr in real life, and I met his brother, David. And so there's a little bit there that I like, and I love their jerseys. They're the best helmet jersey combo in the league. But yeah, I'm pumped to watch every one of those divisional games.
I live here in Wisconsin as a Bear fan. I've been so close to I've been so close to buying a Davante Adams jersey just to kind of troll everyone here, but I don't know.
Yeah, I just bought my first Davante jersey last year, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Well, speaking of former Packers, and coaches, probably one of your favorite coaches of all time, Mike McCarthy.
I knew you were going to say that.
So, reaction: Mike McCarthy will be the coach of the Cowboys in 2023.
I think he will be. Obviously, he needs to have success. Right now, I have the Cowboys winning that division. So if you win the division and you're not, how would you get rid of your coach unless there was some major significant things? So I'm not biased in my opinion here. A lot of Packers fans do not like Mike McCarthy. I respected a lot of things that he did and what he stood for. I also really respected that when he had time off, he actually worked on himself, worked on his game, got people in to help him. Where's my blind spots? So I actually have a ton of respect for this coach, and I do think that he's a good coach. I think there's just a lot of pressure in Dallas to be Super Bowl contenders every year. Did they put the pieces around that make him going to make him and the team successful? We're about to find out. But defensively last year, they were very good. In fact, I think they had the most turnovers of any team in the NFL. So if they can have that kind of success again, I can't see Mike McCarthy losing his job.
Yeah, and with that on Cowboys success, then Cowboys will make the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I just don't think they have it because, okay, so if we're going to say, for example, in the passing game, we've got CeeDee Lamb who needs to take another giant step to be a number one wide receiver, even though he's already there. Like that, they don't have anyone else. Tolbert is there. He's a rookie. I like Schultz, like in the way Dak's going to find him when he needs to. But Gallup is the guy no one's talking about, and I think he could be an X factor. I actually like Gallup a lot, and if he can come back from this injury healthy, I think it just makes the offense just really dangerous. But there's a lot of great defenses in the NFC that you're going to have to like somehow stop. And I don't know if they, on their O-line now, if they have the players, because there's some big holes there. And that's where, like, great regular season team, unsure about what they can do in the playoffs. Could they make the Super Bowl? They definitely have pieces together to and get it like be contenders. I wouldn't want to put anything saying this is what I'm putting my flag on the Cowboys this year. But I love a lot of what they've done. So I mean Parsons, super stud. Like, what a draft pick. I was hoping that he was going to fall, but I knew I was in La La Land. So he would have got picked just after that if he didn't get picked there. So yeah, I'm positive about the Cowboys. I'm just not that. I'm not going to be Super Bowl.
So Ezekiel Elliott, is he still elite?
Well, he's digressed for a number of years. Last year, he was hurt. Now, in the eye test, Pollard is more explosive and dynamic, but there's a reason why he's not a number one running back. And it's because they believe in Zeke Elliott. Zeke is, maybe he's not as explosive as he was, but he's got a skill set that just can't be denied. And if your owner loves you, you're going to be getting played. I just think that I wouldn't. Okay, so if we're going to say elite, are we talking like McCaffrey, Henry, Jonathan Taylor elite? No, he's not that anymore. If we're talking fantasy relevant, is he a low end number one or a high end number two fantasy running back? I would say he's probably a high end fantasy number two running back. So that's where it depends on what you're talking about. But if we're talking the high tier, no, he's not. He's lost a step. His injuries have caught up with him. And but I would still have him on my fantasy team and have a lot of confidence because he ended up having over 200 fantasy points last year. He was actually tricky good in an interesting way.
Yeah, he kind of lost my trust fantasy wise a couple years ago, and
Right.
it just and that can happen. I think sometimes when you have a top end one or two running back, you want to be able to set him and forget him, right? You don't want to have any questions, and so that's why I worry about Elliott. But when you look at it, the Cowboys may have to be a running team at least to start, but it'll be interesting though with that. Line, can they do that?
I think that's a great point. I just want to like compare him to other people. Like if we're gonna call him in that, like, you don't have to worry. Like, I would rather have Aaron Jones. I'd rather have Nick Chubb. I'd like just like naming some of those guys who went a little bit later in that draft, but rather have than Elliott. And there's a number of guys I would just rather have, like Javonte Williams, rather have, like, and it's not close, right? So yeah, I think he can be productive. I think a season that he's healthy, I think he'll surprise some people.
So you picked the Cowboys to win the division. So here's my question then. Is Dak Prescott that quarterback? Can he lead the Cowboys to the Super Bowl? Maybe not this year, but eventually.
Possibly. So I know you want a definitive answer here, and I don't want to like backtrack and just be like, I've got lots of bold predictions. Here's the thing about Dak that I didn't think. When they signed him to that massive contract, I thought they were out to lunch. They were crazy. Like, he hadn't, but then he went out and started putting up 450, 500-yard passing games. And I'm like, I think I was wrong about Dak. So last year, I was targeting him in all my fantasy leagues. I was waiting on quarterback, picking Dak, thinking I just won the lottery. He was such a disappointment last year. I was actually shocked. I had to actually make trades in the season. I traded to get Jalen Hurts. And so I was really pumped about that. And then, but then it's like, do I start Hurts? Do I start Dak? Like, really, like, and Dak had so many bad things. I actually turned around and traded Jalen Hurts and got Patrick Mahomes for the playoffs and I won my championship because I made that deal. And so I just said, I can't trust Dak anymore, so I threw him to the bench. So can he lead them to the Super Bowl in years to come? Yes, I think he's got the possibility of doing that, especially if these young wide receivers become what they're hoping. I think he's got potential. Is he the best quarterback in the league? Absolutely not. I wouldn't even put him in top 5 in real life quarterback, not fantasy, but real life. I wouldn't put him even in the top 5. So does he have potential? Absolutely he does. He's got tons of skill set. I love that he can run. He's dangerous when he runs. So
absolutely
great guy.
Well, speaking of on the offensive side of the ball, dangerous in the division. Vikings have an amazing wide receiver core and possibly the best in the league, right?
Very true.
They're up there with some of the best. So here's an overreaction or not. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen will combine for 3,000 receiving yards in 2022.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I'm glad you brought this up because, again, I'm not biased. I'm a realist. Nobody's talking about Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
Thielen is a talent. Everyone's like, he's washed up, he's old, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about you, but when I watch their games, I am so worried about him. And the emergence of Jefferson, he is unbelievable talent. But why isn't anyone talking about Thielen? He catches touchdowns nonstop. Last year, I had him as my number 2 wide receiver in fantasy. I was so excited. Like every video, I was like, "Hey, just so you know, I've got Thielen, and I'm fine, and I'm hooked on a Thielen, right?" And so I actually think he didn't produce as much because he got hurt. And that's why I'm like, that's not an overreaction. These guys are super, super talented. And Kirk Cousins, everyone complains about Kirk Cousins. He's actually way better. Like, I was thinking about it today driving because I was listening to Shelby talking from that last video that you did. And the fact is that over half the league would love to have Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. So yes, has he struggled? Yes. But there's a lot of great quarterbacks out there who've struggled, and he's better than them. And so, yes, can he win in the big game? We still got to see that. I think, yes, over 3,000 receiving yards, because like Jefferson alone is going to get what? I don't know. Like what did he get last year? 1,600? Like he's so stinking good. Like even if he got 1,400, that means, well, I guess.
He could get 1,800 and, Thielen 1,200. I mean, it's just
totally.
So here's, and I'm sure as a Packer fan, you were excited when, former Rams coach came and became the coach of the Packers. Just as far as offensive wise, I don't think enough people are talking about the Vikings, their offense. You have the, new coaches, new offensive scheme, and what they're going to do offensively. Like it's weird as a Bears fan to be like, blowing the Vikings horn, because I've been to that stadium and I don't want to blow that horn. But anyway,
cool. That's a cool horn.
It is a cool horn, but it's kind of annoying. But, but I think someone picked them to be 19th in the league. I'm like, do you watch football? I mean,
they don't.
Obviously, their defense is the question, right? I mean, but they're going to be able to score a ton of points. And I'm thinking, like, historically, I mean, we talked about the Bills. The Vikings may be up there with, when they had Randall Cunningham, when they had Randy Moss. They may have to be. That's the one thing, right? To win some of these games, they may have to be. And they just may be chucking it around, and that may be a big part of it. So, like, I do like Kirk Cousins for that reason as well.
Totally. But so here's the thing is, like, everyone's sleeping on them. You want to hear a hot take?
Mm-hmm.
As a Packers fan, hoping I'm wrong, we lose week 1 against the Vikings.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
and the reason why is we don't have the chemistry yet. In fact, I just did my prediction Packers video last week, and I actually predicted that Green Bay is going to go 1 and 2 to start the season, and Packerland's going to freak out. Like, I think that the Vikings are the real deal, and when we play them again at the end of the season, I predict that we beat them. In fact, that's where we're going to win the division, because we end up winning in that important game. But I could be wrong. The Vikings could win this division. Absolutely. They're super talented.
It's going to be close too. And a big part, I think, for the Packers, not having Lazard, right? I mean, right. Anytime you don't have a receiver, let alone one of the ones that's supposed to be the top one in a road game, I think that's going to be huge as well. The big thing with the Vikings, and I'm hearing a lot of this from my Vikings guys, Uneducated Takes, and Viking Dave, and all of this is, last year with Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer, they barely even coexisted. Like, Mike Zimmer would call him that quarterback, and just offensively, they did not even really talk. And so now Kirk Cousins has that cloud lifted up off of him, and he can perform, kind of do what he does best. And I think that's going to be huge. Talk about with the Bears and as far as what their coaching staff is going to, cater to Justin, they're going to cater to Kirk Cousins. And I mean, you got Jefferson Thielen. I didn't even bring up KJ Osborne. I mean, he is huge as well. So they've got all these talents. Irv Smith could be a huge addition right there. So they've got all of this talent.
Dalvin Cook coming down the backfield. That guy is a stud.
So with that, then I guess my question then here is when you look at this season. Let's just kind of go through some of the divisions and who do you have winning each division, and maybe some Super Bowl predictions.
Okay, so let me give you some bold takes here.
Let's do it.
Everyone, and rightfully so, is talking about the Bengals. Like, I believe that Joe Burrow is a winner. He might not put up the biggest stats, but he finds ways to win. So I know everyone's all in on the Bengals, especially after last season. But my hot take is the Ravens win that division. And I think that, like, they were decimated by injuries and we're still in the hunt. So I remember talking to my brother about this, and he's like, no way. And I'm telling you right now, the Ravens are legit. Like, they are amazing. And so Lamar's back. He's angry. He's wanting to put up huge numbers. That defense is actually pretty good. Getting Bateman back, like they are absolutely fantastic. So that's my big take on a division winner.
So I was going to say on Bateman, he's a player that I have targeted in all of my fantasy leagues.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've actually got a lot of Bateman stock. So I think that you're totally right on that. What do you like about him? What is it that stands out?
Well, the biggest thing is opportunity. I mean, who else do the Ravens have? I think that's the biggest thing, and he showed that talent when he was at Minnesota with the Gophers. And so, really, who else do they have? I mean, Duvernay. I mean, they really don't have anyone else. And a lot of it's kind of like, if that's the guy, and so I like, I really think Lamar Jackson, he's going to be on a mission this year. I do agree with that on the division. I think he's going to be on a tear, and obviously we hope he doesn't get hurt, right? But I think I like your take on the Ravens winning that division.
Yeah, and I think that's the key here is all my bold predictions are on the basis that people are going to stay healthy. So, okay, so if we go AFC South, I know everyone's on the Colts train. And I just look at that division. I'm like, I have to stay on it. Matt Ryan is the best quarterback they've had in the longest time, and their defense is even better. And they still have arguably the best running back in the league. Pittman's going to have a monster year. Who's going to battle for them there? Not the Jaguars, not the Texans, the Titans. But they lost A.J. Brown. I don't get any scenario, barring injury, where the Colts don't easily win that division.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if Pittman steps up. Absolutely. So what about? I'm going to guess that the East goes through the Buffalo, right?
Absolutely. And I I do think the Patriots are going to be in the conversation. The Dolphins have potential, but no one's going to stop the Bills. So that's an easy one. If we go to the AFC West, though, again, if you're making like today, my bold take is the Chargers win that division. Like they are young and good. I think Mike Williams takes another step forward. Palmer looks like he can have another good season. I think their defense, the defense is better than people give them credit for. So I think that's going to shock a lot of people. But again, that one is like, I definitely could be wrong. I mean, I could see the Raiders winning it. I could see the Chiefs winning it. But I'm going with the Chargers to win that division.
And I can definitely see that as well. I want to go back to one thing that I thought about with the AFC South. I mean, obviously, everyone discounts the Jaguars because they're the Jaguars, right? In what universe, what world, I mean, does like Trevor Lawrence just start chucking it and just like really take that next step? I mean, and maybe sneak into that conversation to maybe beat the Colts, especially with that defense and what they did last year, right?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think it's this year. I think Trevor Lawrence starts looking like the number 1 overall pick. And there's skill set there. Now, does that mean the team around him is good enough? No, I think he makes huge strides this season. In fact, I'm in a dynasty league. We went through our draft, and nobody even picked Trevor Lawrence up.
Wow.
And I'm like, we're talking dynasty. So my quarterbacks were Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, I need to get younger. Mm-hmm. So I just waited till that waiver spot was done. I actually had him. I was the only person that picked him up. And I'm like, I think I felt like I just won the lottery.
Yeah, I have him in a super flex as well. Yep.
There you go. Right.
Yep,
and so,
absolutely.
So I'm thinking that like he's got the skill set. It's just that he's got to have the piece around. Travis is so good out of the backfield. He is dynamic. And I think James Robinson, if he can come back healthy, they've got a running game that's going to help that passing game, that it's going to open things up for Trevor. So by the way, he has a fantastic first name.
Yes. Earlier this offseason, I did a podcast with a Jacksonville podcaster and kind of talking about some of the pieces that the Jaguars have and comparing them to the Bears. I got a little bit depressed because I'm thinking, overall, the Jaguars have some pieces. It's just putting it together, right? And getting a coaching staff, and defensively, they're getting there as well. I mean, they're the Jaguars, right? But I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't care. I mean, he won at Clemson, and now that they've actually have some stability in the coaching, room, that would be an interesting pick.
Yeah, that's a good take. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So, all right. So we have our AFC winners. What about NFC?
Obviously, going with the Cowboys. There, we already talked about that long enough. Probably don't need to flog that one anymore. NFC West, this is going to be an exciting division. Again, bloodbath for most weeks. Now, I know we want to talk about division winners, but I'd love to talk about the Seattle Seahawks just for a second. I love that they did not draft a quarterback, that they're sticking with this team because they're tanking the season and they want a top 3 pick and they're going to get a franchise quarterback. So when the Cardinals, the Rams, and the 49ers are super teams, they're building and growing. So I actually believe in what the Seahawks are doing. Now, going to actual division winner, nobody's talking about the Cardinals. They could surprise everyone. I just don't know if they have that defense that can do it. Like, when I look at the 49ers, I'm like, those guys are deadly. Now, the problem is it's Trey Lance. It's like, is he the real deal? He might be. I just did a video on do not draft Trey Lance as your number 1 QB in fantasy. I got a massive amount of hits on that. People were so angry for me making that video. But my premise was make it for draft him next year, not this year. So I think he's going to progress. I still think even after last night, the Rams are probably the favorites to win that division. So I'm going to go with the Rams, but I could see the 49ers do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, talk about like drafting, for the next year. Last year, people were drafting Justin Fields and I wasn't, because he just knew that, he wasn't going to be much in that offense. And so you kind of look to the next year. Even this year, the Dynasty, I go ahead and, draft him, right? But you have to see some, some continued growth for Justin Fields. You have to also see the pieces around him. 49ers, that's the one thing with Trey Lance. They have some weapons. And we talked, I just did a preview show for the Bears 49ers prior to this. And that's the one thing, Trey Lance is not going to be asked to win the game. They're probably going to be pretty conservative. On that to begin with, but number two, it's going to be a raining game. So it may be a low scoring game. Right. But when you have the talent, Ayuk, when you have Deebo Samuel, Kittle's out obviously, but when you have those players, there's a better chance that he can actually, obviously do better because he's got that talent around him. Justin Fields does not.
Right. No, you're right. So I think a lot of people want to say that they're going to pick someone because they want to be different. They don't want to say the same as last year. Yep. And I get that. And I think all my like big hot takes are in the AFC. Where in the NFC, I'm like, I didn't see some of those other teams make big enough jumps yet to make them like really contenders. Like now, when we went into the Packers Vikings, like I did say, I can see the Vikings winning that. I think the hard take about it is that the Packers win it and it shocks everyone because everyone's saying the Vikings are going to win that. And I don't even think it's because I'm a Packers fan. Just watching it. I also think the Lions are a lot better than people think. But in that last video, I didn't know that they were struggling with injuries already. So if that is the case, they're probably not going to take the step forward. And so, but man, I think it's a 2-horse race in that division, and I think they both make the playoffs.
I see that as well. Yeah. And that'll be interesting. Yeah. So obviously you got the Cowboys and Packers, Rams, and then who do you have for the AFC South?
Yeah. I mean, you got
NFC South.
I have bet against Brady so many times in my life. And the way, like, there's no way he can do it again. There's no way. And he keeps doing it. And so I just can't, I've just come to the realization that I just can't bet against Brady anymore. And I don't care how old he is. I don't care, and all these people like I literally heard people say he's missed most of the of training camp and this. No, he hasn't. He missed 11 days, and now they're counting them out. Now, in saying that, I am so interested to watch what the Panthers look like. Like I am not a Baker Mayfield fan. In fact, I still think to this day the Browns should have drafted Saquon Barkley with the first pick. I think they totally failed on that spot there. Baker was the wrong choice. But being in a new system, I'm pumped. McCaffrey, not hurt. Oh my goodness, like these guys could be dangerous. So I'm actually interested to see where they're going to be. And then the Saints, speaking of guy coming back from injury, Michael Thomas, are you kidding me? This guy is an elite wide receiver. He's a difference maker. He causes separation. Now we have to see after injury, is he going to do that? So there is so much about this division I love. The one thing, the hot take that I'm not going with is I'm not believing the hype about the Falcons. Kyle Pitts is super elite. But yeah. I don't care what people say. Like, I've avoided Kyle Pitts in every draft. I don't think I have him in one league. Not because he's not talented. I just don't think Mariota's the guy. I don't think they have the right system, the right coaching. They are going to struggle. And so maybe they got lots of points because it's garbage time. But when you compare yourself, Bucks versus Falcons, no brainer. Bucks versus Panthers. I just can't pick the Panthers yet. Bucks versus Saints. Jameis Winston. He can put up the numbers. He can also put up the interceptions. So I think when it comes to the big game, It's going to be Winston and Brady going head to head, and Brady's going to win that matchup because Winston's going to throw those picks.
Yeah, and we still don't even know the whole Alvin Kamara situation either. I mean,
Right.
I can't imagine that they would just suspend him mid-season. I mean, it's just crazy how they haven't, done something yet. So that's going to be something interesting to watch. But I mean, I feel like that would be unprecedented to kind of like complete it and then like part way through the season be like, okay, you're done for a few games.
Right. Yeah. So those are my big league winners. But I'm looking at that list going, didn't they all win their division last year? But again, AFC is the one where I've got some hot takes. So
yeah, so when you look at going through the playoffs, and obviously we don't know matchups and stuff. Who do you have is the Super Bowl matchup eventually?
Yeah. So I've been asked this question a lot, and I've kind of flip flopped, but I'm coming back to what I just said about betting against certain teams, certain players. I think the Bills are going to make it. I think they've made that step in that stride. I think their defense is better. I think they're going to find a way in the AFC to figure it out. But when it comes to the Super Bowl, I think the Bucs are going to make it. Brady's going to win, and then he's going to retire. And it's going to be this amazing, feather in his cap or whatever, crown, jewel in his crown, whatever it is. Like what does he have? 7 Super Bowls? Like,
yeah, it's nuts.
It's nuts. So now people are questioning their O-line and holding, but no one's talking about that you can't run up the middle against Tampa Bay. No one's talking about that Godwin is coming back. No one's talking about that Fournette had an incredible connection with Brady, and like what's an Evans is a complete monster, and they have the coaching, they have all this stuff. So I don't want to pick them, okay? I want to pick someone else, but I don't want to be boring for people and saying, oh, great. I mean, I hope not. I hope I'm wrong too, but I highly doubt that I'm wrong on this one.
Yeah, tell you what. I mean, yeah, it's the quarterbacks that have done it before. It is hard to bet against them. I was the one last playoffs that said, Aaron Rodgers, just like Stephen A. Smith said, oh, he's a bad man. I just can't, but they had the special teams deficiencies, and so when you look at teams that are, complete, getting through, injuries and getting through the playoffs, I mean, it really is a no-brainer to say the Bills, on the AFC side. I mean, there's some other teams that could get there. I mean,
totally.
with the experience that the Bengals had, that's, definitely possible. But when you look at it right now, Bills, I mean, just what they've been doing in just having Josh Allen, I think that's huge. When you look at the NFC side, you just don't have that complete team. I mean, you talked about the Cowboys. I mean, they're not a complete team. There's some missing pieces there. Packers definitely have missing pieces. The Rams, I mean, they may have some missing pieces as far as receiving, right? I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. There's this massive question marks across the whole entire league, and there's very few teams that have very few question marks. And I think that's why I'm picking the Bills to make the Super Bowl, because they're the team that has the fewest question marks than anyone else. And even the Bucs have question marks. It's just that you look at the rest of that conference, and there's way more question marks than I'm like, wow, there's just a lot there. I just don't trust anyone yet. So someone could surprise me, and Brady could get hurt. But I'm done betting against Brady. He's the GOAT. He's unbelievable. That Super Bowl against the Falcons, still to me, I can't believe that they won that Super Bowl. The things that had to happen, and it's just like he's like him and Peyton Manning. They put in the time and put in. They're obsessed with success, and it shows on the field. So.
Do you think with the Bucs, having success this year, that Gronk comes back and joins them at some point?
That I've thought about that a lot. There's a possibility, but I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters if Gronk comes back. I just think they're that good of a team. Having Gronk is just a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that Tom Brady relies upon. But if Chris Godwin is, at full strength, and obviously it looks like game week 1 he's a game time decision. But throughout the season, he is a huge asset right there in Mike Evans. So they have the receivers to really compete for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, tell you what, this has been a lot of fun. I definitely appreciate you joining. So where can everyone find you again?
Yeah, so probably the best ways to get a hold of me is Kempner Sports on YouTube. I also have a page on Facebook. I don't know if anyone uses Facebook anymore. So that's where I do a lot of dialogue. But if you make a comment on YouTube, I love commenting back. I love to debate. And if you want to debate with me, you got to have facts, not feelings. So come with some facts. And I definitely will respect you more. And then, of course, on Twitter, RevTrev K, I'm there as well. But mostly YouTube is where I'm found. I'm also found on Discord as well. If you go to my YouTube channel, especially in my fantasy content, I have an actual Discord server that we'd love to connect, and we just talk fantasy football there as well.
Tell you what, I'd love to have you on the NFC North Friesen 4 pod as well.
Great. I would love to be a part of it. And so that would mean Shelby's there.
That's right? Possible. Yes. Shelby.
She's awesome. I really enjoyed her. She's dynamic. So I'd love to, she knew her stuff. I like that. So.
And we're trying to get Danny in the Snow back as well. She actually was on, had a chance last year to interview AJ Dillon as well. So yeah.
I love AJ Dillon.
Yep.
I love that guy. I literally just bought his jersey this year, so I'm so excited to wear it. So,
well, I definitely appreciate you coming on. Once again, this has been NFL Outdated Cover 2 series with RevTrev from Kempner Sports. Thanks again.
Yeah, and make sure everyone to smash that like button and that subscribe. This is good content that you guys are watching. Please just give him some love. He puts a lot of time into this.
Appreciate that. Thanks again.